So hello everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Peter's talk was so exciting, so I'm still like thrilled, enthused. Thank you so much. You know, the title of my talk, The Mode is the Message, the Code is the Collective, is also over there in the corner as a slogan. It was one of the most important slogans of an organization called the Old Boys Network. We founded in '97, which lasted only for 5 years, not 21 years. And when I talked to Sophia about what I would do today, what I would like to contribute, is actually, it's not so much about the content of what we were doing with the Old Boys Network, which was all around cyberfeminism, which emerged in the mid-90s with the emergence of the internet. As you know, we thought, some of the young feminists we were back then, we thought with the internet there is a new potential of not just new means of production, but also new means of distribution, which also would allow new forms of organization. So I'm talking more about the notion of self-organization, which has been a long issue in all kind of forms of political organization. So, but before I talk, I would really like to thank Sophia for inviting me to come back here to Dundee. I have a history with Dundee, and I'm really glad to be part of this event, and I thank you so much for setting up not just the event today, which is hilarious. I never in my life attended a 12-hour acting up. Let's see how much I can hold up, or if I can make it to the end. But also the show is amazing, and this whole series of the Ignorant Art School is really impressive. Thank you. So I hope I can manage with the slides without being able to operate them. Let's try, go to the next one, see what it says. Okay, that's good. So, power structures. One of the central questions of feminism is the question of power. The question of power, or the question of who has power over whom, and this question is related to the structures in which we are embedded in the family, in the state, in political parties, in a love relationship, in society at large, but also in a company where we work or an institution like the university here, but not the least also in the artist or activist groups we are working. Wherever people come together and do something together, power structures emerge. And that was my first lesson in feminism. Try to understand where you are in terms of power structures. Only if you understand your own involvement, your own position of power and or subordination, you will be able to change something fundamental. That is where politics begins, and once you have adopted this kind of thinking, you cannot unlearn it anymore. So once you started thinking about, so I find myself wherever I go, I check the power relations first. So that's what we also do. Next slide, please. Okay. I've been invited to a lot of different contexts to speak, from autonomous art centers, activist centers, to business contexts, to high-ranking university, whatever. And at one point I thought, or I found myself, before I started to prepare the talk, I tried to understand where I'm going, what kind of situation is it, what kind of environment. And that's when I invented this format called the Feminist Check-In. Next slide, please. And it's a few simple questions that I ask myself, and I would like to invite you also to ask yourself this question. To start with, we should have probably done this in the morning today before we started, but still, is where we are. What kind of space is it? It's obvious. We are at a university, we are in an art gallery, so we are in an art context. It's an event. It's a curated event, which is important. It's not a self-organized event. What kind of people are here? And also, very important, what is the economy? So, are we self-funded? Are we getting money to come here? Do we have to pay entrance fee? So what is the economy behind this event? And of course, for example, in my case, I get paid a little bit, travel, a little fee, and we can do that because there's funding behind it and so on. So I think it's important to be aware of this. The next question is, why are we here? And of course, this has to be answered individually or collectively, depending. And I think this could now start a huge discussion, where everyone tells, why are you here? What do you expect? And so on. What can we do together? I think I just would like you to take maybe this question with you and answer it for yourself. For me, if you want to hear my answer, my individual answer is really, because the work of the Old Boys Network, as I already said, is from 1997 to 2001, so it's a historical work. And we've been starting to build the archive of the Old Boys Network in the last years, so I constantly was revisiting the work. And I did a lot of different works, and I made a lot of experiences, and I'm somewhere completely different than I was 25 years ago. So looking back with the knowledge I have now and the experience to what we have done is basically something that produced a lot of knowledge and insight for me, but I'm constantly also trying to talk to other people, like, for example, Peter is a perfect example of reflecting what you have done historically and then sit down together with people to meet and say, what have you done? What did work? What didn't work? And also to write about it. I wrote several texts about it, so that we can also communicate to the younger generation about our experiences is very important, as we'll also see. Last question, what do we want to achieve individually, collectively? Of course, this applies mainly or more to activist contexts where you gather to discuss things and then you develop maybe some actions or some ideas or manifestos or whatever out of this. I don't think we have a collective goal, do we, Sophia? Not yet, maybe at the end of the end. It's coming, okay. And as I said, for me, it's really to revisit my own work around the 2000s and also put it in the context of other historical work, but also, of course, look at this work from our current situation, because it's very, very different from 25 years ago. So we also have to consider it, not just celebrate what we have achieved back then, but what is it worth now and how can we keep our achievements in this difficult situation. So let's move on to the next slide. So we're talking about self-organization. It refers to the process by which a system spontaneously develops a structured or organized state without being directed by an external agent or central authority, which is usually people come together and say, we need to do something about this, and then it get organized. It's not somebody else who said, you have to meet and do something, but the group comes together in order to do something together. It has been part of my artistic practice to work in groups and collectives and networks. And next slide will give you some ideas of some of the groups and the works I was involved. The interesting thing with self-organization is, that relates back to my introduction about power, that you can decide upon your own rules regarding the way you get organized, the way you organize power within your own structures. So there is some essential feminist writing that refers exactly to these questions of self-organization and its historical references, but I thought it would be nice, maybe some of the older ones know it, but I thought it would be nice to introduce these historical references to the young generation. Next slide, please. So the first one, the classic, is Joe Freeman's The Tyranny of Structurelessness. Next one. Next slide. So about this text, The Tyranny of Structurelessness was first published in 1970 to address the need for organization in the US women's liberation movement as it sought to move from criticizing society to changing it. So it was about action, political action. As such, the examples used are specific to that movement, but anyone who has been involved in a structureless group will be able to draw parallels with their own experiences. Often the most frustrating thing about progressive struggles is that each generation must repeat the mistakes of the previous struggles. Learning from the history of these struggles can save us having to make their mistakes ourselves again. So next slide. Okay. So if you're interested in this text, as I said, there are classics. They are spread all over the internet. You can download it from different sources. Freeman debunks structurelessness as a myth. Something, she says, that is organizationally impossible, because structures of power always emerge, if not formally, then informally, which comes with a lot of dangers. She gives many examples, and she advises people to consciously give themselves structures in order to avoid disputes and to be able to work in a focused and fair manner together. As guiding principles, she suggests the principles of democratic structures in general, as there are delegation, allocation of clearly defined responsibilities, distribution of power, rotation, diffusion of information, and equal access to resources. So I found this text only many, many, many years after we self-organized. And I said, we were so innocent, we didn't know anything when we started to work together, and we made all possible mistakes. So of course it's obvious if you see this now, of course you delegate, you do all these kind of things. It's democratic principles, but you only learn them by practicing them, by really doing it, not just talking about it. And it's very, very hard work to learn this way of working together, because we don't learn it anywhere. We don't learn it in the family, it's hierarchical. We don't learn it in the school, not in the university. We are embedded in completely hierarchical structures everywhere. So when people start to self-organize and try to do something together, that's the reason why they often fail, because we don't know how to do it properly. Yeah. Okay, next one. Another classic which you should know is Carol Hanisch. The personal is political. It's a slogan that probably everyone knows. Ooh, 5 minutes, I have to hurry, speak faster. So this text is about a feminist activist strategy from the 60s called consciousness raising. Central to consciousness raising is the notion of personal experience, a form of knowledge that would also be basis of all political action. I don't read now what I have written about it, because it would take too long, but I try to really condense it. So the idea of self-organization is that people come together in small groups with certain rules. They choose a topic. They compare their personal experiences on the basis of the commonalities they find. They understand it's not their actual personal problem they're having, but it's a structural problem. So this strategy does not end there with the mutual understanding, but it's a starting point for getting organized, for making political demands. And this is a very essential, and I think all the demands we know from 70s feminism go back to this very basic strategy. It still works. I did a really wild experiment applying it to technopolitics, this idea of personal is political, and I did some workshops around it, and I think it's still a very valid strategy. So let me jump to the next, also very quickly. Yeah, consciousness raising. Next one. Next one, yes. So this was all talking about the context of politics, self-organization in politics. The big question is, how does this relate to art? Because we are in the art context. And also, many, many, many years after we did this work with Old Boys Network, where my main intention was really to think of new forms of protest, you know, which are different, not just marching from A to B like it has always been done, but trying to invent something that has not been there before, which has also an aesthetic value and which draws attention and which is surprising. So I came across this book by Olga Groyunova. She's a Russian theoretist living in London. She created this notion of co-organizational aesthetics, where she makes the correlation between organization as an aesthetic practice. I can't go into this. This is one of my favorite topics. I could talk about this for hours, but I just wanted to mention it to you. And I think I have to jump to the next slide. Yeah, let's come back to the modus and methods, because I wanted to relate all this to the work which is here in the gallery. You see not just the slogan, but also on the screen is the 100 antithesis, the definition, 100 definitions of what cyberfeminism is not. That was one of our aesthetic strategies in order to say, you know, we know what cyberfeminism is. It's like this and like that. And if you like it, you can join us. We said we are an open platform. We only tell you what cyberfeminism is not. And one of the rules to join the Old Boys Network is to find your own definition of what you want cyberfeminism to be, like it's an activating strategy. Another important aspect of OBN, where we try to experiment with form of organization, was actually we put a lot of attention to our own regulating structure, and we formalized our decision-making structures and things like that. It's always a problem in the art context, the question of representation, who is entitled to speak for an organization or an activist group. So one of the rules we gave ourselves when we were invited as OBN, today we are not invited as OBN, but I'm invited as myself. So if we would have been invited as OBN, it would always have been 3 people coming, sitting next to each other and providing 3 different answers to the same question in order to make clear there's not one voice, there's not one opinion, but the idea of OBN is plurality and this is difference. So by offering these different answers to the same questions, we made it clear that it's, you know, not just 3, but potentially 100 and endless. And we wanted to motivate people to join. So there was also, and also this is the other video which you can see we created to the left. There's like 6 or 7 members of the Old Boys Network, which all provide an answer to the question, what is cyberfeminism? And I think it's, for me, it's funny to see, because I don't know, from what year the video is, maybe 2000 or so. It's more, yeah, it's 25 years ago, my God. The aesthetics, but it's still nice, no? So I think I end, and I hope I could get across in this very short time some ideas about self-organization. And we are at the university, so we are not in a self-organized context, but we can go outside and self-organize. So please do, and take with you some of the experiences of the early generation. Thank you.